Hi, and welcome to the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the work episode. I'm your host, Bill Simpson. I coach men who are struggling in relationship, how to communicate effectively, build trust, and deepen intimacy so that they can be the best version of themselves in relationship and live the life they love. So, what do I mean when I say the work? Well, in terms of relationship, it's simply you putting in the work, the effort, and doing all that you can do to do your part in making the relationship the best it can be. And, when I think of the work, I can't help but think of the popular self-help author and speaker Byron Katie. She had this epiphany years ago and came up with a process of self-reflection after suffering from depression, agoraphobia, overeating, and self-medicating with codeine and alcohol. And basically her epiphany was that when she believed her negative thoughts, she suffered. And when she didn't believe them, she didn't suffer. And thus came up with a very powerful process she called the work. Just to be clear, this is not what I'm referring to here when I say the work. But it's good stuff. You can Google Byron Katie if you want to know more. Now, like I said, the work I'm referring to is the work that needs to be done for you to be a better you and for your relationship. And the fact that you're listening to this podcast is evidence that you're at least open to doing some of the work, and that's a good sign. Now, I'm not going to lie, and I've said it many times before, change is hard, and the work can be scary and can even hurt sometimes. And yet it is well worth the effort in the long run for you and your relationship. So I've had a lot of clients come to me for help in their relationship, right? Often in the beginning, they're usually pretty motivated and eager to learn skills how they can improve. They learn about new communication skills, mind-body techniques, empathy, self-compassion, and so on. And they start to shift their mindset. And then after some time, it's like this plateau happens where they kind of get stuck. One client, I'll call him Corey, not his real name, he was really open and shared all the things that he knew he was doing wrong and what he needed to do to change in his marriage to his wife, Sheila. He would say things like, Bill, I react aggressively, I yell and scream when I get angry or frustrated. I get all defensive when she confronts me. I don't listen very well, and so on. And then he said that he would always apologize afterwards. Well, I acknowledged him for being honest about his perceived shortcomings or faults and the fact that he apologized. Then I reminded him about the skills and techniques we had talked about, like when he's angry, to pause, breathe, think about his value or the importance of his relationship, and act accordingly. And instead of getting all defensive, ask her to tell you more. Get really clear. Pay attention when she talks to you and mirror back to her what she said. Have empathy. All that stuff. Well, he was like, yeah, Bill, I know all that. And I said, Corey, I hear you. Then I pushed back and I said, you know about it. And he was like, huh? And I said, if you really knew it, you would do it. And then he was kind of taken aback and still had this puzzled look on his face. And then he had that light bulb moment and he said, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's one thing to know about something, and it's another thing to act on it and do the work, take action. Then when we talked about his apologies, I told him that was great that he apologized. Yet apologizing all the time and not changing your behavior can get old and can cause the relationship to drift apart over time. It's like empty promises, right? Yeah, you've got to do the work. And it really comes down to a word that I use a lot, and that is willingness. Ask yourself, what am I willing to do or not to do to change? And if you really want to change, you have to be willing to do something different or stop doing what's not working. And frankly, that's the hard part. It's being willing to pause, breathe, and reflect on what's important to you before you act out aggressively, yell, and scream. It's being willing to let go of your ego and stop fighting to be right and going for the bigger goal of staying connected in the relationship. It's about being willing to stop being defensive and take in what she has to say. Validate her experience so she feels seen and heard whether you agree or not, and have her do the same for you. It's being willing to be brave enough to commit to looking at yourself, taking in some feedback, noticing where you can improve, and taking action on making those improvements. It's committing to doing the work, not just talking about it. And that's the commitment that will help you grow and be the best you can be. That's the commitment that will help your relationship come alive and you can live the life you love. Now, it would be ideal if your spouse or partner does the work too, and you work together, right? But you don't really have control over that. All you have control over is your own actions, your own work for you first and for the relationship. And I'm happy to say that Corey is now committed to and has been doing the work. And his marriage is doing much better. And his wife Sheila is doing the work too. And that will do it for this episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the work episode. And remember, change and personal growth can be hard, and doing the work easy to resist. Yet being willing to do whatever it takes and do the work can help you come alive and thrive in relationship. In the words of Maya Angelou, she says, "Nothing works unless you do." Makes sense. And as always, if you're having any challenges in your relationship or have any comments or suggestions for the podcast, please email me at bill@pathways2livingwell.com. That's bill@pathways2livingwell.com. Got another question for you. Do you know what your love language is? Do you know what your partner or spouse's love language is? Well, it just might help your relationship if you did. Find out more by joining me next time for the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the love language episode. And until next time, keep your heart open and stay on the path to love.